Hey YouTube, Kiratwig here, bringing you all an update to my Fluffal Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for December 2022. I wanted to update the Fluffals. It's been a good year since the last update. We actually haven't gotten any new support for the deck, but we do have some new fusion options that you can go into, some other cards that avoided being banned on the latest ban list, and just a couple other changes that I made to the deck to make it more of a competitive playstyle for the Fluffal setup, which the main play is just being able to get out a bunch of different fusion summons by being able to make use of cards like Edge Imp Chain and Fright for Fusion. All of these just giving you easy access to these fusion plays. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. Maybe we will see some new support later on down the road for the Fluffals as well. I think we've got a Pendulum monster here and there, and then maybe like one fusion monster, but that really has been about it. For the monsters, starting off with the main deck, we're running 3 Fluffal Bear. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to set 1 toy vendor directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone, and then you can contribute this card to target 1 polymerization in your graveyard and add to your hand. You can only use 1 Fluffal Bear effect per turn, only once that turn, so it lets you just set up your toy vendor in your spell and trap card zone as I throw it across the table. You have toy vendor here for that setup, and being able just to add polymerization back gives you more and more fusion options and setup thanks to your Fluffal Bear. So it's definitely a 3-of since you have a field and hand option with this card. I also run 3 Fluffal Wings with this card. If it's in your graveyard and you control toy vendor, you can banish it from your graveyard to target 1 Fluffal monster in your graveyard and banish it. If you do draw 1 card, then you can send 1 toy vendor you control to the graveyard to draw 1 additional card. So it's basically a draw 2 and then a search, because when toy vendor is sent to the graveyard, you get the search for an Edge Imp Sabers or Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand. So very, very useful to make use of Fluffal Wings just for more of that graveyard setup. I also run 3 Fluffal Dolphin. You can target 1 toy vendor in your graveyard, set it. If you do, send 1 Fluffal monster or 1 Edge Imp Sabers from your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard as fusion material for the fusion summon, you can shuffle into the deck 1 of your fusion spells or polymerization spells that is banished or in your graveyard. You can use each effect of Fluffal Dolphin once per turn. So Dolphin gives you more recycle power, and for the fact that Dolphin is also a water attribute monster, gives you easier access along with Fluffal Penguin to go into Bahamut Shark, which can then also go into Totally Awesome as an additional play. The recycle also works well for some of the 1-ofs that we run in the main deck for the Fright for cards, but being able just to send a Fluffal card gives us easier access from the deck to Fluffal Wings to set up in the graveyard and reset up our toy vendor on the field. And for the last of the 3-ofs, I run 3 Fluffal Penguin. It has a draw option, but also being able just to special summon when you summon out another Fluffal monster. Once again, it's the draw power that is good with this card, but also just being able to overlay this with itself, or even just Fluffal Dolphin to go into Bahamut Shark is a big part of what makes Penguin good for its fusion option to draw and discard for more graveyard setup as well. But just the easy use of this card on the field and being able to have it for that special summon on the field as well. For some of the lower numbers for the Fluffal monsters that I run 2 Fluffal Dog. It just has to be normal or special summon from the hand. Then you can add 1 Edge Imp Sabers or 1 Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand, except for Fluffal Dog. You can only use this effect once per turn, but once again, you can summon it off of your cards like your Fluffal Penguin, getting that special summon, or even from the toy vendor play, being able to send and set up depending on the draw that you get with it. If you draw and special summon Fluffal Dog from your hand, you'll still get that search, and being able to add some of the lower number cards, whether it be one of the 1-ofs, which we'll get to in just a bit, for our Fluffal monsters or even our Edge Imp monsters in the deck. For the 1-ofs for the Fluffal monsters, I run 1 Fluffal Cat. When sent to the graveyard as fusion material for a fusion summon, you can target 1 polymerization in your graveyard and add to your hand. So once again, recycle power. Fluffal Sheep. If you control a Fluffal monster except Fluffal Sheep, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can return 1 other Fluffal monster you control to the hand to special summon 1 Edge Imp monster from your hand or graveyard. More of your setup using your Fluffal Sheep. Just a 1-of though, I feel it's all you need. You can easily search it off of cards like Fluffal Dog, and with that, that is another special summon onto the field. And I also run the 1 Fluffal Owl for the rest of the Fluffal lineup that I run in the deck. So you have these cards to search and set up, and especially with Fluffal Owl, when it's normal summon or special summon from the hand, add polymerization from your deck to your hand, and being able to pay 500 life points for a fusion summon. You can only use 1 Fluffal Owl effect per turn, but you have options with all of those together. For the Edge Imp monsters, I run 3 Edge Imp Scythe, being able to just fusion summon during your opponent's turn, during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, effect, you can reveal this card in your hand and fusion summon one Fright for a Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, including this card. And if a Fright for a Fusion monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So protection, but also this response during your opponent's turn is what's very scary about your Edge and Scythe, because then you can just react to your opponent with cards like your Fright for a Tiger, destroying their own cards while they're trying to make their own plays go off. For other 3-ofs, I also run 3 Edge Chain. When this card declares an attack, you can add 1 Edge Chain from your deck to your hand. And if it's sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Fright for card from your deck to your hand. So you can add Fright for Fusion, Fright for Patchwork. Having the option to search out Patchwork is what's made this card so relevant with the Patchwork setup in many Despia decks, and it works well in the deck it was originally intended to be in as well. So a definite 3-of. With the last of the Edge monsters just being 1 Edge Sabers. If this card's in your graveyard, you can place 1 card from your hand on the top of your deck to special summon it in defense position. You can only use the effect once per turn, but another way to set up some of your other Fluffal monsters on top of your deck to then reveal and special summon off of Toy Vendor. With the last monster in the deck being 3 King of the Swamps, just an additional polymerization search. Definitely provide this or prefer it over a hand trap, just because you have more to work with and a lot more to invest into your actual fusion plays in the deck. And that is it for the main deck monsters. We do run a pretty high monster count, but they all work very well, whether it's just setting up our other spells or searching them out. For the spells, our main go-to one is Polymerization, so we're definitely running 3 of this card, just being able to search out the main go-to way to fusion summon a lot. In this deck, we have other fusion options, including our Edge Imp Scythe, but still, Polymerization just comes in handy. It's not a once per turn. We can add it back with multiple other cards and keep on fusion summoning. More of the setup also falls under Toy Vendor, which we are running 3 copies of. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card, draw 1 card, show it, and then if it is a Fluffal monster, special summon 1 monster from your hand. Otherwise, discard the card you drew. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Edge Sabers or Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand. So it's your setup with cards like Fluffal Wings, but also just being able to pre-set up the top of your deck with cards like Edge Sabers, meaning you can then reveal the card knowing it is a Fluffal monster and gain the special summon of another Fluffal monster from your hand. And ones like Owl and Dog will gain their additional effects even if they're special summoned from the hand. For the last of the 3-ofs for the spells, I also run the 3 Fright for Patchwork, just an easy plus card. You add 1 Edge monster and 1 Polymerization from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Patchwork per turn, but being able to search it off of cards like Edge Chain gives you access to some of your 1-ofs or the cards that are used during your opponent's turn, and the additional search for a Polymerization. Having this King of the Swamp and also Fluffal Owl as all options to search into your cards makes it so much easier to get the main way to fusion summon in this deck. For the 1-ofs for our Fright for cards, I also run 1 Fright for Reborn, just targeting a Fright for monster in your graveyard and special summoning it, and during the main phase, except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it from your graveyard, target one of your banished Fluffal or Fright for monsters, and return it to the graveyard, giving you options for cards like your Fright for Fusion to then refuse with those cards we have on the field as well. And lastly, the 1 Fright for Repair. You target 1 Fright for Fusion monster in your graveyard, return it to the extra deck. Then you can special summon 1 Fluffal or Edge monster from your graveyard, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 Fluffal or Edge monster from your hand. You can only use 1 Fright for Repair effect per turn, but this is more of the track back that you're meant to do with this card, being able to give you resources back onto the field to potentially go into other fusion plays. I also run the 1 instant fusion. There's a lot of talk that this card could potentially be hit with the next list for the ban list coming after the December emergency ban list we had. If this card were to get hit, I am running 41 cards in the deck, so you could potentially just take this card out and have the 40 card count to use, or you can add in another additional Fluffal or Edge monster. You could put in another Edge Sabers. You could put in a copy of Fluffal Cat. You could even go for more of the fusion options and add a second copy of Fright for Fusion. You have plenty of card options to replace this card with, but still being able to use instant fusion and get out a Fright for Sheep just gives you access to easy extra deck monsters on the field to use. With the last card that I run in the deck, just 1 Fright for Jar. Its name becomes Toy Vendor while on the field or in the graveyard. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card to draw 1 card and show it, and if it's an Edge monster, you can destroy 1 card on the field. Otherwise, place 1 card from your hand on the top or bottom of your deck, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and half its attack until the end of this turn. So it's basically the Edge Imp equivalent of Toy Vendor, having more setup for your graveyard to use with draw power in hand, but also being able to destroy your opponent's cards or even just half that monster's attack. So definitely a complete opposite of Toy Vendor, but still very useful since it counts as Toy Vendor in the graveyard to then use as well for the setup on the field with your Fluffal wings. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 2 copies of Fright for a Tiger. This is the Destruction one when it's fusion summoned, targeting cards on the field up to the number of fusion materials used for it. And also all Fright for monsters you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffal monster and Fright for monster you control. So bigger numbers can be hit with this card. More special summoning options with Fright for Sheep, being able to revive this card once per turn. And your opponent cannot activate card effects when this card attacks, and it gains 800 attack when it comes back from the special summon. So very strong for the 2800 attack, but also the instant fusion target I spoke of before. I also run the 2 Fright for Sabertooth, along with the instant fusion, being able to get out a Fright for monster on the field. You can use it along with 1 Fluffal or Edge monster to then use for the fusion of your Sabertooth, being a very difficult card to get over. When it's fusion summoned, you can target a Fright for monster in your graveyard and special summon it, so you can even get back the monster that you used for the fusion of your Fright for Sabertooth, as long as it wasn't banished. And also, all Fright for monsters you control gain 400 attack, and if this card was fusion summoned using 3 or more fusion material, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So like I said, a more difficult card to get over for your opponent with this one also. I also run the 1 Fright for Cruel Whale. This one needs just 1 Edge monster and 1 Fluffal monster. If it's fusion summoned, you can destroy 1 card, both players' fields. And once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 fusion monster you control, send 1 Fright for card from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, except for Cruel Whale. If you do, the target monster gains attack equal to half of its original attack till the end of this turn. So this could be one you could potentially go into with cards like your Edge of Scythe and destroying a card on your opponent's field and your own, and having set up for some of your other Fright for cards to send to the graveyard. 1 Fright for Wolf for the potential OTK you can do with this, and your Fright for Tiger. Kraken for more attacking and destruction, being able to target 1 monster your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard, getting over the destruction plays. Daredevil for more of the higher attack point boss monster plays. I really don't go into Bear much, but still a fun option to have. If you wanted to run a Link monster instead of Fright for Bear, you can always take out Bear and put in a copy of Cross Sheep instead. For more of the generic fusions, I also run 1 Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. It needs 2 monsters with the same type and attribute, but different names. So you can either use any of the Edge monsters or any of the Fluffal monsters. I have Garura in here just for the situations where I'm stuck with one or the other in my hand and no other ones to go into. Same with Predaplant, Dragostapelia. This one needs a fusion monster at least and 1 dark monster, so even if I do go into Garura, I at least have the option to then go into Dragostapelia along with 1 dark attribute monster. So this one pops up more when I have my Edge monster in my hand to use also. And then lastly, for the extra deck, just the 1 copy of the Bahamut Shark and the totally awesome 2 special summon out with it. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, setup is very key in this deck. So depending on what you have for your fusion play, you can go for a lot with that setup as well. If you go for the Fluffal Bear setup as well, you can rely on the potential to send with Toy Vendor and hopefully get another Fluffal monster. But that comes down to also just what you can search out with. If you just open up the go-to play, that being your 1 Fluffal monster, and then let's say the Patchwork in your hand, you have a lot of search to rely on with this card. You can activate the Patchwork, searching out your Polymerization. The monster I would go for would be a Change, because you have more search with it. And then having that 1 Fluffal monster in your hand, you can then, if you have more than 1, it's the Bear you want to use. But for this play, you can just go for the Polymerization using the Edge Chain and your Fluffal Bear. With that, you can go into your first fusion monster. If your opponent went first, you can go into, remember you need the Edge Sabers for your Tiger. And for this play, you can at least use Chain and Bear to go into either the Cruel Whale, which would just need the 1 Edge monster and the 1 Fluffal monster, destroying your opponent's card along with 1 of your own. So remember that with this play as well. You can target 1 card on both players' field and destroy them. So either that, you'll have to set up another play, which if you do have the Toy Vendor or even just the Fright for Jar you can set, you can have that destruction play and then have the Toy Vendor set up in the graveyard for you to use. But then you can also activate the Edge Chain in your graveyard to add a Fright for card from your deck to your hand. So with this, you can then add had the Frightfur card needed, which could be your Frightfur Fusion. You could go into Sabertooth. You just want to have the special summon this early. You can activate Frightfur Fusion, banishing that other chain and the bear from your graveyard to give you the summon of your Frightfur Sheep. But once again, this is just a 2-card play that you were able to get 2 fusion monsters with on the field. The bigger emergency plays, like I said before, to go into Garura, just needing 2 monsters with the same type and attribute. So this would just be 2 Fluffal monsters, since they have to also have the same type. Remember that. It's a little more difficult with the Fluffal monsters, but still possible, since cards like Penguin and also Dolphin have the same type and also are both fairy monster. And then you also have the play with your 2 different Edgit monsters to at least go into the fusion of having a fusion summoned out Garura on the field for more draw power, and any battle damage your opponent takes from this battle involving this card is doubled. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. Like I said, Fluffals are always fun, and I always love updating them, so I hope you all enjoy as well. Maybe we'll see some new support later on down the road. We had some in Rise of the Duelist as well, but ever since then, it's been a good couple years since then, so we're definitely due for some support. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.